I think women are terrible listeners.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, I guess I can only speak for myself with that. Because I can listen. I listen very well. I think the only issue is when people think I'm not listening just because I don't, because my response is my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times, like I hear you, I understand what you're saying, or more so my perspective. I'm giving you my perspective. Not necessarily saying that you're wrong, but I mean, at the end of the day, what you saying?
Has that been effective?
I think she kind of proved the point right there. A lot of times when you're part of listening is silence. So it's sometimes sort of absorbing and then understanding what that person has to say. When we listen to respond, we're not really listening. We have a rejoinder. We've stopped at certain points of that conversation or when that person is speaking because we're ready to rebuttal something. Sometimes listening is, and at least for men, had to learn and understand this early on. Some of us are still trying to, grasp it. When women want you to listen, they don't want that response. They don't want the solution. They don't always want a response or solution. Sometimes they want to be heard. Men don't really get that. I don't mean they don't get it, like they don't understand it. They don't get that grace. When we are having conversations, the word choice, the tone, the style of communication, all those are up for debate. All those become reasons why what we're saying is never really heard. When then the men quickly learn that this is a waste of time. This is a waste of time. Even when they continuously have to show and be an example of how to listen, otherwise they're things just sort of implode. We don't get that similar grace. The same thing that women will give to other women, we don't get that from women. And then the conversation becomes, well, why don't you guys open up? So before we dive back into this one, hit that like button, drop a comment, subscribe, share the video if you feel so moved to, and make sure the notification bells are on because YouTube will turn it off because I haven't figured that out yet. um Continuing on the Sicky series, while we're feeling a bit better, we're going to continue to try to get through some videos. We got a backlog of videos that I've been meaning to get to, but work and breasts have become a high priority. We're still trying to maintain that 2 a day. So let's get into this one.
I think women are terrible listeners.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, I guess I can only speak for myself with that. Because I can listen. I listen very well. I think the only issue is when people.
If we just look at that opening statement, I think women are terrible listeners, right? And of course, I think it's hyperbolic on purpose. But I don't think we have a sort of society that it simultaneously has devalued women's thoughts and opinions and then simultaneously made them, you know, inscrutable, untouchable. When they do say something, and this is the thing it comes down to in a way where we don't have a habit of sometimes, like we do with men, saying to women, you're wrong, full stop. Like before the advent of social media and these spaces that were created where people were having conversations and then you challenged, we began to challenge people's notions and not just women. We began to challenge notions and say flat out, yeah, you're wrong on that. Right. And you became you're quickly to access the data and statistics to prove your point and say, yeah, you're wrong. And we began to see that a lot of thoughts or a lot of opinions were formed not from data, but from what felt right, what they've sort of seen with their own eyes. And I'm saying they to be genderless here. This isn't something that only women do. When we are stuck in that sort of modality that what we see can only be the reality, and I've done it. I've been in a relationship where my significant other has done the same thing, and it's caused nonstop headbutts. Whenever discussions became arguments and they became devices to sort of pull us apart. And one of those is recognizing when just because you would do something one way, you understand it to be this way, that doesn't mean that that's the actual reality for everyone. So when he says that women, I think women are bad listeners, I think that's because we haven't had a culture, we haven't had a system that simply sometimes tells women, "Hey, you're wrong. Go reformulate that argument. Hey, you're wrong. You need less emotion in this and come up with more facts." When we, for such a long time, this I think this is why we often see it when men are saying, "Hey," and this is a conversation I have frequently. Women don't approach. Women don't shoot their shot. Women don't compliment. And the rejoinder is always they're thinking about something they would do, not something, not listening to the story in which you're selling them. This is my lived experience. That does not happen to me. You may think otherwise, but I'm telling you, being the subject matter expert in my own life, that does not happen. The response is one that's always, it's an incredulous one. I just can't believe that. Right. And then, when you sometimes push further, say, well, when's the last time you complimented a man, a stranger you didn't know? And then there's like, oh, well, or there's like, well, I do it all the time. So therefore, everyone else, every other woman does that. And this isn't, obviously, this is something that's just simply limited to shooting your shot or sending out compliments. This is a larger, of course, a larger swath. When we say that women have trouble with accountability, this is sort of what the crux of it is. When you can't see something outside of yourself, I'm not saying you have an inability to do that, but that's not the default position. The default one is what I'm seeing, what am I experiencing is correct. Is correct. Yes, it's correct for you. Absolutely. That's your lived experience. But when we're saying it, casting it in a broader sense, then it's hard to sometimes make that jump, make that gap and say, you know what, that could be actually true.
I think I'm not listening just because I don't, my response is my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times, like I hear you, I understand what you're saying, or more so my perspective. I'm giving you my perspective.
Now, when you're telling someone, okay, this is a perfect addition to what I was just saying. I'm telling you, hey, I don't get approached. Right? Women don't shoot their shot. Women don't call me handsome. Women don't do the things that you are believing them to do. And then you give your opinion on that, right? Your perspective. You want to sort of in your aspect of listening, you want to counter what I'm saying with your own truth. That's not listening. I'm not saying you have to be simply nod your head and go ahead, but that same sort of grace that you would expect when you're telling someone, you know, colloquially what your truth is, you should offer that same thing to a man if you want to actually listen. If you want that man to actually believe this is a space in which he can actually tell you things. Otherwise, it doesn't take a lot for us to learn and understand what's happening here, what type of game is being played. By game, I'm just saying this is a structure, this is a setup. Okay, I can't come to you, right? I can't come to you. Or I'll go as so far as to make trivial experiences seem bigger to me so you feel as if you had a place, you feel helpful. Doesn't matter to me. Right? Oh man, this work was such a rough day. This guy and I, we got into it, and that thing I'll blow up into a mountain so you can feel like you're there for me. This means nothing. This thing, but in truth, it means absolutely nothing to me. It didn't move the needle, the emotional needle at all. But when I later on hear you use that story, right? And men, in the comment section can attest to this. When you use that story and it comes back in a way that's twisted, and you use it to jab at me, there's no emotional, drive. There's no emotional blade in there that can cut me. I just look and say, that's exactly why I did it. That's exactly why I did it. And I'm glad I didn't trust you with something real because you would have weaponized that. This has been the real experience of men, right? Sometimes it's not as serial as that. But in the sense of not being heard, not being listened to, this is something that across the board, most of us have sort of experienced. I'm not saying that this is solely women's fault. I'm always going to say a lot of this stems with us. When we don't tell the truth, when we don't tell them, hey, that's unacceptable, right? When we prioritize keeping the peace without a war, without a fight, because you know what? Happy wife, happy life, right? Men are now like walking back from that, not accepting that. So if you do have an issue with what someone says or someone's doing, especially when someone that's your significant other, or you're building to be that, you have to have the uncomfortable conversation. You have to become uncomfortable being uncomfortable. And if that person isn't ready to grow through what's been stagnating them in their relationships, that's fine. You just know, oh, I'm glad I didn't really have to pack any bags to separate myself from this person. Some people need time to realize this and time to grow and time to work on these things. This is not something that you can read in a self-help book or hear in a video and suddenly realize, okay, I get it now. I get it. No, you let people, like this, you detach with love, kindness, and just say, yeah, I wish you the best. That's I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you're feeling what I'm saying, click on one of the videos that you see right here on the screen. I think sometimes they actually come up on the bottom. So we'll do that on the bottom. And let me know your thoughts in the comments and on the next video. I'll see you guys.